is the 247th vlog on this channel, coming at you on a Thursday morning, heading on into Peppermill. Needless to say, I'm fired up for some 49er playoff action, but before that, got to try and bounce back from one of the most disappointing days in a while yesterday. Pretty much to sum it all up for you quickly, it was the case where we had a good old boy, a Texas cowboy in the game, and he was throwing money around like it was going out of style. And to his credit, the one good spot I had to pick him off in a huge pot, he got his bluff through on me. He got a great river to do it on, but nevertheless, I should have made the call, and I didn't. And I've been kicking myself all night long as a result. So far, 2024 has been off to a bit of an average start. So I'd love for things to improve today. Per usual, I'd show up to Peppermill at about 11 a.m., as would Bugsy, by the way. It's a place where not only can you get a cool view of the Imperial Sand Dunes, but a place where you can get $2 an hour in comps as a poker player. And come to find out, when you play 1,000 hours a year like I do, and unlike Reno Grinder, don't spend all that money on gelato, those tend to accumulate. So, while I didn't necessarily need to punt off 200 of those on a pair of Mega Wayfarers from Ray-Ban, I did so anyway. I'd buy into the game while grabbing the 7th seat for an optimal filming angle. The first hand would come when a tight player who bought in for 600 raises to 35 from the low jack. I hadn't gotten action on a raise that I had made the previous hand, but that did mean that I had the rock in front of me, indicating the mandatory winner's straddle. So when the low jack made it 35, I have 6, 7 of spades in the +1 position, and make the call, as does the player in middle position 2. With 105 in, the board comes out Jack, 8-6 rainbow, 1 spade. Original raiser bets 40 here. I make the call with a certain thought process in mind of either turning the best hand or potentially stealing this pot in certain spots. MP2 calls as well though. So with 225 in, the turn is the 4 of spades. Definitely one of those cards that can be used to execute part 2 of my plan. Problem is, I need the other guy to fold also, which knowing him isn't always a guarantee. But that said, I try it. I fire 150 here with my flush draw. And as you can see, the player I was actually most concerned about mucks his hand. So I felt pretty good about my chances to win this pot one way or the other. Low jack though tank calls this 150. So with 525 in, the river is an offsuit 9. So I brick my draw, but knowing this player, he isn't going to want to go broke with one pair. And while it is likely that his one pair hands are going to be the best one pair hands he can have in this spot, I still felt I could get him to lay it down. He has 400 left in his stack. As I mentioned, he had just bought in, so I bet it all. And sure enough, he doesn't think too long with it before picking up those cards and tossing them into the muck. So right out of the gate, my all-in bluff works to perfection. I may have started with the worst hand in the last hand, so I figured it best to start with the best one in this next one, making it 35 from +1. I would get 5 colors here. This is just a quintessential example of how it's good to be me. I feel like no one gets more undeserved action than I do, which is great. And with 210 in, the board comes out King 3-5 with 2 hearts, and it gets checked over to me. With so many players in here, I would elect to bet 75 and then evaluate further. It just seemed like not the best spot to make a huge bet, given how many players saw this flop. The button and under the gun limper both call me here with the others folding. So with 435 in, the turn is the 3 of spades. That's a pretty damn good card for me here, hoping to still have the best hand. I bet 200. The button thinks about this for a second before jamming all in for his last 500. Under the gun folds, and it's back on me. Not knowing what I was expecting to see here, for that price, I'm obviously making the call, so I toss in the 300, creating a $1,435 pot, and he shows 4-9 of hearts. Now, if he's playing that hand because he loves the 49ers, I respect it. I can't say I'd have seen that coming, though. We agree to run this thing twice. He drills the flush on the first board, so thankfully we did run it twice. He bricks the second, aces hold up, and we chop it up. As if getting action from 9-4 wasn't enough, I'd lose about 200 to the game's biggest action player when I raised ace-king and he called me with 7-3 of hearts and ended up making 2 pair. This is a mid-session update. I recently had a player in this game, and I was trying to figure out if this guy was a good player or not, based on the little I knew about him. He had gone broke and he rebought for 500. I open to 30 right as this happens. And he then proceeds to bet the entire 500, all in pre-flop. And I said to myself, well, I guess I've answered that question. By the way, if I can just make a note from the vlogger interworking perspective here, the one thing you don't want when you're trying to make one of these vlogs is to have a bunch of your hands back to back to back to back. You like them to be spaced out so you have time to kind of get your notes together and prepare for recording the next hand. And that was the reason why I didn't get this next hand on video. I would raise ace-queen and flop an ace, which is always nice. Problem was, my opponent flopped a set of 5s, and I would lose about 350. So despite the good start, I was actually in the red early on in this game. I wasn't exactly in a great mood after those 3 hands, but when I saw a post reminding me that the end zones at Levi's Stadium were currently painted red, I did feel a little bit better. By the way, that is something I feel more NFL teams should do. Only paint the end zones when it's a playoff game. A 49er tradition that I've always liked. I would then pick up Jack 8 of hearts, a premium hand I know, and raise the big blind straddle getting 2 colors. That may not always be a good recommendation, but after the flop came out King 5 deuce, all hearts, I felt better about it. I bet 55 into a pot of 100. MP1 would fold, but the button wouldn't, and with 210 in, the turn is an offsuit 7. I bet 125 here with the jack high flush, and now the button raises me to 400. Now I know this player pretty well. Not as well as I knew the guy that I ran the bluff against in the first hand, but somewhat well nonetheless. So that helped in what I would ultimately do here. I also know that generally speaking, people don't take the smooth call and then raise line without a nutted hand all that often, unless you know they're a complete maniac, which I know this guy isn't. So I gave it some thought, and would settle on folding right now. I didn't expect the next thing to happen, and that is that he would show me his cards. And he turns over ace 7 of hearts for the nut flush, pretty much just what I expected. I would, though, win about 100 of that back when I'd raise pocket 6s, and I'd get multiple colors once again. But I got a 3 high flop, which is pretty damn good for a pair of 6s, and my c-bet took it down. We did get some new players and some players table changing away from the game, including one OMC, who always table changes without even knowing who is in the other game. He just thinks that's always what you're supposed to do, go to the other table, which I find absolutely hilarious. We also get Marco from Trupoya in from the Bay Area, and I'd actually proceed to win $175 off of him with 9-7 of spades when I turned a straight against his top pair. I was thin in the rock, and I know this is a shocker, but I picked up 8 deuce, because when you're in the straddle, 38% of the time, you pick up 8 deuce. Every time.
It's made with bits of real panther.
So I won that hand off of Marco, and that was actually followed up by me winning a surprisingly large pot with ace 9 against ace 8 on an ace high board, and the 9 played. And that was the hand that actually got me back into the black on the day. What's your name,
I'm
man?
JS, a huge fan of bendeach, been watching the vlog since day one.
What has been your favorite vlog?
I like the vlog when, let me see, which one? Dang, I like your first vlog, actually.
The first one?
The opening vlog, yeah. I was watching it since the first one.
That is never an answer I've gotten.
I love Reno, man. It's like my second home. I used to go to downtown a lot, but I don't really like it since a lot of the places have closed. But I think the Peppermill has the best poker room, and the Calneva for craps.
Craps.
Yeah.
Money. All right.
Craps at the Calneva.
Go roll a 6 or an 8, will you?
That's it. Hard ways, baby. Hard 10, hard 6.
And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it, how you gonna move for it, what you gonna...
I would engage in a failed set mining operation with pocket sixes against young Chucky Dave. I have to include the young part, because there are 2 guys in the game now from the small California town of Truckee, and they are both named Dave. So we have young Truckee Dave and the OG Truckee Dave. Anyway, I'd fold the 6s, and he would win that hand with pocket aces. I then play a 6-way limped pot, and once again I have Jack 8 suited. The Jack 8 of diamonds in this one. Not exactly the most premium hands, but in this case I was in the rock. And it was an unraised pot, so with 60 and the board comes out 8, 6 deuce, 2 diamonds, giving me top pair and a flush draw. I'm in the under the gun position, first to act with 2 players away from their seats. So I bet full pot here. And to my amazement, 4 players call me. With 360 in, the turn is an offsuit 7. I come out now and decide it's worth continuing to bet here, despite the fact there are a lot of hands that potentially already beat me, or hands that could beat me. It still feels like too good of a spot not to take. So I make it 150. 3 of the players would fold to this bet, but the player in MP1 decides to stick around. So this is actually shaping up exactly as I was kind of hoping that it would. With 660 in, the river is an offsuit 3. So I brick my draw here and I check. MP1 fires out now 225. And this is a spot where I just can't think of a ton of value hands he's going to have here. But there are certainly a decent amount of missed draws here. And again, I know I say this a lot, but it's a player I know pretty well. And it's a player who's going to be playing a lot of hands and is capable of representing in a spot like this, especially when it's heads up. So, I don't even think too long with this, and I make the call. And he shows 9-10 of spades for a missed straight draw, and I take down a pot with just a pair of 8s. We get a couple of limps, and I'm in the rock with pocket 10s, and I raise to 60. And sure enough, neither player folds to my raise. So with 185 in, the board comes out ace, 10 deuce, 2 hearts, giving me middle set. I fast play this, betting 100 and get 1 fold. +1, min raises to 200 here. Generally speaking, when you get a min raise on a flop like this, it's often a top pair hand. But this player is not the type that likes to play it that way. So I was really questioning what he had, and the most likely hand I felt was pocket deuces. And obviously, if that's the case, there's no need to slow play this, as there's plenty of cards that could kill your action. So I come right back over the top of him, making it 400. Now, I fully expected him to ship all in at this point, because as Bart Hansen preaches on CrushLifePoker.com, when someone raises a bet post-flop, they're never folding. That is a general statement, obviously. It does not always apply, but in games like this, it usually does. By the way, there are many places for poker training, and they usually all focus on online poker. So if you play live poker like me, the place to go is the aforementioned CrushLifePoker.com. Through weekly videos and podcasts, you'll get the chance to learn the concepts that have been helping me since I first subscribed back in 2010. It's the only product I've ever purchased that is paid for itself, and then plenty more, and you can all do the same while getting 25% off for life. Just go to the link at the bottom of this video and claim your discount. Anyway, back to the hand. I figured that he would be going all in after I 3-bet the flop, but instead, he just calls. And with 985 in, the turn pairs the ace, giving me 10s full. And at this point, he now jams all in. And once you see what he has, that seemed like kind of a weird way to do it. Obviously, I snap call the bet. We have a $1,600 pot, and he only has 1 out in the deck with King, Queen of Hearts for the royal draw. And despite 2 rivers, he doesn't hit it, and that pot gets shipped over to me. Royal flush draws have often gotten me in trouble, and in this case, it gets my opponent in a terrible spot. I'd play for about another 2 hours after that hand without too many interesting spots. I actually picked up ace-king in a hand against Marco and won about 150 in that spot. So it was going to be a really good day, undoubtedly. It was the kind of day that I expected to happen against the Cowboy. Unfortunately for me in that one, I lost about 900. But in this one, I would book a win of more than that. All right, well, the bad news was the good old boy, the Cowboy, didn't show up today. Good news was, booked a $2,095 win. Really interesting hand there against a player who had gotten me in a set-over-set cooler months ago and had gotten me in 2 spots where I had bigger overpairs than him, and he flop sets both times. So I guess turnabout is fair play. In this case, he had the royal draw, which I actually didn't expect. I would have thought it would be an ace or a set of deuces in that hand, but either way, a hand that I'm on the right side of, leading to this win today. I have several more words to speak, and once again, I will go home to speak them. All right, recording this section of the vlog on Sunday morning. What a week it was. My son turned 4 this week. Hard to believe for those of you that have been with this channel since it started and he wasn't even born yet. Still see some remnants of his birthday party, some dinosaur balloons sitting underneath the Pulp Fiction poster. But wow, I got to comment. I mean, what an unbelievable game of football between the San Francisco 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. If I had to equate that football game to a poker hand, it would be like a hand where you raise big with pocket aces and you get called by 8-5 suited, and the flop comes 8-5 deuce. You get a bunch of money in, and you end up pairing the deuce on the river. So it's like you start with the best hand, not an egregious suck out, but that said, you still kind of had to get lucky at the end to win the hand, and that's basically what happened with the 49ers in this game. Without Christian McCaffrey looking like the MVP of the league, they never would have won this game. And certainly when they lost Deebo Samuel, one of their best players, early on to injury, I had a pretty bad feeling against this red-hot Green Bay Packers team and a guy who looks like a superstar in the making in Jordan Love. So out of there with the win somehow, and now on to the NFC Championship game at Levi's Stadium, where the 49ers have never lost a playoff game, and I am fired up for that one coming up next week. A good amount of new subscribers have come on board to this channel since last week, and I appreciate you for being here. If you're new to the channel, hit those like and subscribe buttons like many of you did last week. I genuinely appreciate that. And follow along on Instagram at bendeach. We'll see you back here next time.
I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life, cause I don't feel alive, and there's nothing that makes me happy. Hold my beer for a minute, I'm about to quit my job, cash in for a ticket. I'm going on a trip and I don't plan to visit. I'm gonna stay there till I feel like I'm winning, and this is just the beginning. I need a big change, help me feel like living. I need a big swing, home runs I'm hitting, and I'll never look back, moving on till I get it all. And we all got dreams,